If you had to choose between the Amex Blue Cash Everyday and the Capital One Saver, and you couldn't just say apply for both for whatever reason, and you could only keep one, then this video is going to tell you exactly what the optimal decision is for you based on the following information. So let's get into it. The Amex Blue Cash Everyday and the Capital One Saver, they're both no annual fee cards. They give you the optionality of earning your cash back and redeeming it basically for a statement credit or otherwise. They both earn 3% on groceries. The difference is the Amex Blue Cash Everyday, it earns it up to a $6,000 cap each and every year. So if you do that math, if you max it out at $500 a month, then 6K, 3% of that is $180 back in your pocket. With the Capital One Saver though, it's 3%, but it's unlimited. So if you are spending basically more than $500 a month on average, then from that specific perspective, if you look at these cards as grocery only cards, then great, the Capital One Saver is better. But on the flip side, you also have dining as a category with the Saver, which means not just groceries at a 3% uncapped earn rate, you also have dining, which makes it even stronger because the Amex Blue Cash Everyday does not have a category for dining. If you're spending on those type of categories like dining, restaurants, etc., you're going to get 1% with the Blue Cash Everyday. But then taking a second look at the Blue Cash Everyday, you also see a 3% online retail merchant category, which, whether it's Amazon.com, Chewy.com, what have us, right? That's an option that we just wouldn't have with the Capital One Saver. The difference is with Capital One, they do have kind of these merchant offers. If you kind of log into their site, you can see like, oh, hey, if you're shopping with certain retailers, then it could be an increased multiplier level of cashback you would get with, for example, a cashback portal such as Rakuten.com, where there's X amount of merchants where you have varying levels of cashback based on the merchant, and at different times of the year, just like sales go on, you could get an extra multiplier back in terms of percentage. So with the Amex Blue Cash Everyday, the equivalent of this to some degree is a concept known as Amex offers, where basically similar to these merchant offers, you have merchants that are giving you a fixed amount off. For example, let's say, $100 back after $1,000 spent in with some merchant. That's great. But in general, without kind of, going into these different methods, I would say that the Amex Blue Cash Everyday gives you that 3% fix. So you don't need to think about it and looking for an offer, or if there isn't an offer, then, oh man, that, sucks basically, right? Acknowledging this fact, the Blue Cash Everyday also has 3% on gas. And again, it is that $6,000 cap, and that's the same cap for the online retail merchant category we just went over. And all of them individually have that $6,000 cap per year. So it's not 6K for all three, but theoretically, if you max all of them out, then that's like 18 grand. With this said, gas is amazing. Do we really spend more than $500 a month on average? Depends on the individual, depends on maybe the family or the purpose of this card. Because on the flip side with the Saver, you have 3% on both entertainment as well as popular streaming services, where similar to gas, I would say that gas and popular streaming services, they're kind of equivalent for, let's say, a single person or someone who's spending solo. Definitely, I understand it could be more with, familial situation. But when it comes to entertainment, if you're a concert goer, for example, or just spending money on these like, entertainment eligible purchases, then that could be, let's say, $2,000 a year, just arbitrarily, right? So, okay, hey, you got $60 back. With Amex Blue Cash Everyday, you spend the same $2,000, you get $20 back. So again, it's not, breaking the bank, it's not making us that much richer. But the whole point of talking about, which one is better for your situation really just comes, in my perspective, to process optimization. You're basically setting yourself up of having the optimal kind of system to spend the same money that you were spending. So might as well, make the best choice for your spending profile, lifestyle, all the good things. Here's the thing. What I really think differentiates basically both of these cards is the fact that the Blue Cash Everyday comes with certain credits. Okay. These credits are $84 a year to the Disney bundle. So it's $7 a month basically that's given back to you. And these credits, if you don't consume the Disney bundle, whether that's Hulu, ESPN, or Disney Plus, let's say you just, hardcore Netflix type of person, like that's not an issue, but then that just means you're not really having the opportunity to take advantage of this $84. Not that it needs to, because it's a no annual fee cards. You're already kind of coming out ahead if you're just doing your, normal duties day to day. And on top of this, there's $180 credit to Home Chef distributed in $15 monthly increments, which again, similar to Disney Plus, or rather just the bundle in general. If you don't use those services, then that just means like, okay, it's something that you wouldn't take advantage of. It's like a cherry on top, but you're never really doing anything with it. So food for thought, pun intended. On the flip side, with the Capital One Saver, the beauty that I consider is pretty cool is that, it's about the bigger ecosystem. ecosystem. At the end of this video, you'll see two kind of placements for the individual deep dives for each of these cards to get that much more kind of specific. Right now, we're just going over, why you would choose literally one over the other. But if you want to now choose a specific one, you can go even deeper. So the Capital One Saver, it gives us 3% back, true. But the ecosystem that surrounds both of these players, with American Express, you earn membership reward points, generally speaking. But the Blue Cash Everyday is a pure cashback card. That means if you have, let's say, the Blue Cash Everyday and the Amex Platinum, like that's great, but there's not really any efficiency there other than, okay, like having two cards by Amex and just different multiplier categories. And the Amex Platinum, it's more of a benefits card, lifestyle card. But with the Blue Cash Everyday, it's just, straight to the point, for lack of a better term. And with the Saver, if you have, let's say, the Venture X, you can definitely take, let's say, that cashback that you're earning and then transfer over, let's say, that 3% you're earning per dollar spent, it would become 3 miles. And in those miles, however you choose to redeem them, chances are at minimum, you can look at like 1% back, so it's the same difference. But now you have the choice of transferring to partners and otherwise. The catch is, of course, the Venture X that you would combine it with, it has an annual fee. And if you don't want annual fees at all, both of these cards have no annual fee. But if you don't want to kind of complicate the setup, or it's like, hey, I just want one card, I don't want two, I don't want to think about it, which one is the best one to choose? What I would say then is, based off what I said so far, with the Capital One Saver, you also get 8% on Capital One's entertainment portal, which to each their own if it's that valuable or not, but it's just going to depend, right? There's no real straightforward answer. If you don't go to baseball games, for example, then maybe it's not as valuable. If you don't see the certain concert performers that are available on the portal, then it may not make the most sense. With all of this said, if I had to choose personally, I would pick the Capital One Saver. Why? Because cashback to me is cool, but it's not, let's say, the end game, because cashback is just mathematical. You spend $100,000, you get 3%, you get 3K back. You spend $200,000, you get 3% back, that's 6K. You spend $1 million, then 3% back is 30 grand, right? With the Amex Blue Cash Everyday, you can't even scale the spend because of the $6,000 cap. And there's the Capital One Saver where it's unlimited. In the end, I would say that although the American Express ecosystem has more value as a whole, if you don't have any American Express cards, then maybe the Amex Blue Cash Everyday makes more sense to get into their ecosystem, so you have a higher chance of approval with other products that they have, because the understanding is with Amex, they just run your credit in a soft inquiry versus a hard inquiry with Capital One, because the understanding with American Express is that once you're in their system, they're like, oh, hey buddy, you're in our system. And for anyone who's curious, the reason, to my understanding, is that Amex is both providing the credit line and they're also the payment processor. With the Capital One Saver, it's a MasterCard, which that itself is just that, okay, hey, Capital One is basically providing the lendable funds, basically they're backing the credit line, but the actual processing is done through MasterCard whenever you're swiping, tapping, paying, etc. All that said, I would say that if you had to choose one, and let's say this whole video was like, okay, you're like, dude, like this is not enough for me to decide because there's like this teeter of seesawing, right? I would say then, do you care about the short-term gain, for example, versus the long-term value? So if you're looking at the short-term with the Amex Blue Cash Everyday, Amex has basically set up their sign-up bonuses not to be fixed any longer. So you could get a bonus as high as a certain value, such as, let's say, $250 after $2,000 in minimum spend in the first 6 months with the Blue Cash Everyday. With the Capital One Saver, there's elevated offers sometimes where you get $250 after $500 in spend in the first 3 months. So the bonuses in both of these situations are pretty comparable, you could say, generally speaking, where let's just say if it was $200 as a bonus for both of these cards arbitrarily, then I would say, okay, there's a lesser spending requirement with the Capital One Saver, but if you're not really looking at applying for that many cards, or you want to keep it simple or otherwise, then the Blue Cash Everyday, the first 6 months you spend 2K and you get 200 back, and I would look at that more as, oh, the cherry on top is I get 200 back, but you're just using the card as you would in general. If you want to check out the deep dive between both of these cards, then I'll leave these videos here. And with that, thanks for coming to the end. Peace.